My name is Jane Bailey, and I am now 66 years old. But my story started when I was 39 and I was pregnant with my last child. During that pregnancy, I started coughing, like all the time, like coughing. And the doctor was concerned that I had something that I could pass on to the baby. So we did a bunch of tests, couldn't find any reason for the coughing. She said maybe it will go away after the baby's born. So my child was born, the coughing intensified. I would just bust out constantly in these coughing fits. So finally the doctor sent me to an asthma doctor, and this doctor said, "Oh yes, you have exercise-induced asthma." And I thought, what is exercise-induced asthma? And it was very, very strange because I did exercise a lot. I climbed 14ers and I rode my bike 30 miles a day to work and back. I was always hiking, biking, swimming, but I was coughing all the time, so I thought, okay, this makes sense, exercise-induced asthma. So he gave me a bunch of asthma medicine and told me to start working on my asthma. So I had Advair disc and I had rescue inhalers, I had daily inhalers, but nothing seemed to work. In fact, the more I used an inhaler, the more I would cough uncontrollably, even to the fact that I would sit on the floor because I couldn't get my breath. So this went on for a while, for about 10 years. And I'm close to 50 years old now, and I'm going through the mall, and there is a health clinic, and they're doing free exams. So I thought, oh, I am the healthiest 50-year-old they've ever seen. So I'm going to surprise everyone because I ride my bike 30 miles a day. I climb a 14er every single summer. I'm always on the move. So I stopped. They did a bone scan, and then I said, thank you, and I went on. And this lady was chasing me saying, ma'am, we need to speak to you. Come back. So I thought, oh, what's this about? They're going to congratulate me because I'm so healthy. She takes me back, puts me behind this sheet, pulls a sheet. She says, ma'am, from what we can see, your bones are in desperate trouble. You have bones of someone in their 80s. You need to see your doctor right away. Well, I'm blown away. How could she be talking about me? I'm the healthiest person ever. Well, so I made a doctor's appointment, and they found out that I had the bones of an 87-year-old. And I was thinking, I don't know how this happens. I do more weight bearing. I am constantly walking, hiking, climbing, riding my bike everywhere. I even wear weights around my ankles. I was really crazy. And they said, well, maybe we better do a complete physical and find out, why this has happened. So when they did the complete physical, they found out that my oxygen was in the 70s, the low 70s. They found out that my kidneys were in third stage failure. So this went on for a few years, but 3 years later, I started having real problems. Like I couldn't even breathe anymore. And I was taking all these asthma medicines, but nothing was helping. So they did another exam and they found out that I had become a diabetic, and my liver enzymes were really high. My liver was going off scale. And so they put me on full-time oxygen at this time. So everywhere I went, I was pulling a big oxygen canister. I was using oxygen all the time while I was home, and it was just the whole thing was collapsing. My body was collapsing, and no one could tell me why other than I wasn't keeping my oxygen in control. So my internal medicine doctor set me up she sent me to a cardiologist. The first time I met this cardiologist, she was really upset. She said, this has nothing to do with your heart. It's because you haven't kept yourself healthy by taking your asthma medicines. And so now you're in trouble. So go back to your asthma doctor and figure this out. It's not a cardio issue. So I went back to the asthma doctor, and I went back to my internal medicine doctor, and my internal medicine doctor said, no, I'm going to set you up on a plan where you see your 4 specialists every single week at the beginning of each month. And then they report back to me, because we don't know why you're dying, but literally everything in your body is shutting down and we have no understanding why. So I did that actually for 2 years. I had a stack an inch high of reports from every month for 24 months, and everything was getting worse. And my cardiologist was giving me an EKG at the beginning of every month. Every month, my heart had less electrical current. And I was going to the nephrologist, and every month my kidneys were getting worse and worse, to the point where she said, I'm thinking you might be in dialysis someday. And I was going to the asthma doctor, and he was trying all these medicines, and nothing was working. I was on full-time oxygen, and I was being told I needed to use insulin to get my diabetes under control. And I just didn't want to do that. I was a healthy person. I couldn't understand what was happening, either could the doctors. So after doing this for a little over 2 years, all of a sudden, I started gaining rapid weight. Like, I gained 35 pounds in 1 month. My ankles were swollen. I was retaining water. And my internal medicine doctor called me, and she said, we need to have a conference with all the doctors, and we need you to come in. So it was the 1st of January. And when I went in, all my doctors were there. They all had their reports. Each of them had file folders about an inch high from 24 months of having me come in. And they said I was dying. And from their estimation, they had determined that I probably had 4 more months, and I should get my affairs in order. And this was the 1st of January. And so the 1st of January, I'm walking out of their office after receiving this information, and my phone rings, and I'm headed to the elevator, and it was a client of mine. I had a business in the Broadmoor area in Colorado Springs, and one of my clients called me out of the blue and said, Jane, I've been discussing you with some of my friends, and I feel like you need to go to National Jewish in Denver and get a second opinion. Now, she had no idea what had just happened. She had no idea that I was walking out from a conference where I had been told I would be dead in 4 months. And I said, okay, sounds good. I got in the elevator, and when I came out of the elevator and I was walking towards my car, my phone rang again. And it was another client from the Broadmoor that wasn't connected to the first one that called. And she said, Jane, I've been talking with my husband, and we're thinking you should go to National Jewish in Denver and get a different opinion, get a different doctor, figure out what's happening. And I thought, wow, okay, this sounds good. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. So I got to my car. It's a freezing cold day. It's January. Ice, snow, freezing. As I'm getting in my car, my phone rings again. Now, this one was a client that I knew personally really well. Her husband was a doctor in Colorado Springs, and she point blank said, we want you to get to Denver. When our son was really sick, we took him straight to the doctors in Denver. You can't mess around with doctors in Colorado Springs, Jane. You need to go to National Jewish in Denver. And I said, okay. And in my head, whoa, whoa, whoa. And in my head, Lord, Lord, Lord. And in my head, I'm thinking, God is speaking to me very clearly. He is shouting the words, and it's important to listen. So I was shaking trying to look up National Jewish. I knew nothing about National Jewish. And I'm looking on their website. They are the #1 respiratory hospital for 15 running years. They have one location in Denver, Colorado, 50 miles up the road from me. So I call them. I said, yes, I need an appointment right away. And this very perky, happy, wonderful receptionist says, that is wonderful. We are booking 3 months out. And I remember actually verbalizing immediately without thinking, Jesus, you know I don't have 3 months. I need an appointment now. And right at that moment, she says, whoa, one just opened up for Friday. Can you do Friday? I said, click it, save it right away. And she goes, I have it. But you have to guarantee me that you will be able to make an appointment in 2 days with the records from all your different doctors. All 5 of the doctors have to have full records. You have to hand deliver them. I said, I can do it. She said, you can do that in 1 day. I said, I can do that in 1 day. Because I knew all those doctors had those records up in that conference room right there. So I got the records. I go in. I am so excited because for the first moment in this whole process, I thought, God is in control. I have never been alone. This has never been my journey, but it has been his journey. And I am the one he's using to accomplish his purposes and be glorified. And all of a sudden a switch came over me that was like, this is really cool. This is really an honor. So I arrive, I'm waiting in my exam room, and this doctor walks in and he holds out his hand. He says, Jane? And I said, yes. He says, so nice to meet you. I am Dr. Joshua Solomon. I lost it. I said, Joshua Solomon, you have more wisdom than any other doctor on earth. And you're going to go into the promised land and you're going to clean it out and figure out what it is. And I am just going crazy. And he's going, no, please. No. It's just a name, It's just a name. I said, no, it's not just a name. You don't have a clue what I've been through. You are Joshua Solomon. He says, no, ma'am, it's just a name. He's trying to calm me down. I'm super excited. So he asked me for all my records. I hand him this big stack of records. There's a conference table and he lays them out and opens the cover of each stack. And he's on a chair that slides. I'm sitting on the exam table behind him. He starts ping-ponging questions. He doesn't even look at me. He doesn't listen to my lungs. He doesn't give me a breath test. He doesn't do anything. He's ping-ponging questions as he's looking through files super fast. Do. And he's saying, do you do this? Do you do this? Do you get tired? Do you take naps? Do you have exhaustion come upstairs? Do you wake up in the middle of the night? Do you do? And all of a sudden, he just slams them all closed and swirls his chair around. He looks right at me and he says, I am so sorry to tell you this, but none of these doctors did the one test they needed to do to prove that you have a congenital heart defect and you've had it since birth and no one ever identified it. So now you are literally fighting for your life. You have a heart that's in complete COPD, and at this point, I don't know if it can rebound. And he did this, he said, COPD here can rebound. COPD here can't. And I can't guarantee you your heart can. But I'm going to give you the one test that no doctor in your whole life has ever given you and prove that I am correct. So he took me in for a Bible study that takes a matter of 10 minutes. And they hooked me up with the saline solution. They put an ultrasound on my heart, on my chest. And as they put the saline in, you just saw the whole heart become nothing but salt crystals is what it looked like. And he said, there it is. You've been living on carbon dioxide since you were born. He said, I'm amazed you're alive right now. I don't know how you came this far in life, and I have no idea how you gave birth in this situation. And he said, but I'm going to send this back with you to your doctor in Colorado Springs, because if your heart is not at a level where it can't endure this, there is a very simple fix to this. They go up through your groin. It's an outpatient surgery. They put a plug in the hole, and literally it ends. You have full oxygen from that moment on, and things should repair. All your organs should repair that have been suffocating. So I was super excited. I remember bouncing out of National Jewish. I remember hugging him and rejoicing and bouncing to my car. I get back to Colorado Springs and I call the cardiologist. Now, during the whole 2 years that I was seeing her, she blatantly did not like me. I never knew why. I owned a business and everyone loved me. I didn't understand why. She would, every time when I would go in, she said, you shouldn't even be coming to me. This is an oxygen issue with your asthma. You are failing your medicines. You're not doing what your doctor's telling you. Obviously, your heart's getting worse. She was always very negative and never explore anything about my heart. So when I went back to her and I said, this is a heart issue. I do need a cardiologist because I have a hole in my heart and it's an easy fix, and I need to have the operation where you go through my groin. And she was angry. She said, this is not a heart issue, and I will not take any results from a doctor in Denver. And I said, well, then fine. If I have to pay out of pocket to have it done a second time, I'll do that. But would you please give me a Bible study? So she agreed. She gave me a Bible study, and she came. Normally the doctors don't come down. It's the exam, and then they send it up to the doctor. She came down. She was standing there, and when they pushed the saline in, and all the salt came through my heart, she said, well, you do have a hole. Okay, I'll meet you in my office. So she met me in her office after I got dressed and went upstairs. And she said, you know what? Your last results were just last week when we did the conference. Your heart, your entire right side of your heart has stopped. The left side of your heart is 7 times enlarged. Your heart can't withstand that surgery. You are not going to repair from this. You need to go home and prepare to die. And I'm like, I can't understand this. I can't understand why I was given this one test so late in life after seeing so many doctors. And I can't understand why she won't even explore the avenue of trying to save my life now that we know it's a cardio issue. But I had to remember that God gave me a triplicate when he gave me the 3 calls, and that's urgency, that's shouting. So for some reason, God is in this, and I need to just let it play out. So I remember going home, and I remember spending the next month, from like the middle of January to the middle of February, preparing to be gone by April. I remember doing it with peace and like I was working on a business plan. I had a life insurance policy. I wrote it at the top of the page, the amount of money that it would give my survivors. I remember making a list of all the things I wanted to do for the only child that was left at home She was a sophomore at the time. She had been born and raised in the same home with the same set of friends, from preschool to high school to elementary school, middle school, and now she was in high school. And I wanted to keep her in that place. I wanted her to lose her mom, but not her home and not her friends and not her teachers. And her dad lived in Dallas, and we were married. And we had a home in Dallas, our home in Colorado Springs. He worked long distance and came home every weekend, but he would not be allowed to leave a sophomore in this house in Colorado Springs. So I worked through it, and I thought, I'm going to approach this person and see if they would move into my home for 2.5 years and stay there until Jaren graduated as her guardian in the home. I set up 3 different women from the prayer room where my daughter was a worshiper to all agree to take her out for dinner once a week. So therefore, she'd have a mentor in their 30s that was a prayer room worshiper, just like she was as a sophomore in high school, to take her out to eat 3 times a week. I set up women that were my age, that were good friends that my daughter called aunts, to and portioned them a part of the money to handle her wedding and help her plan her wedding. And I set up a portion for her college and someone to help mentor her to choose it. I don't know why I'm crying, because I did.
I'm crying. Oh gosh.
I don't know why I'm crying, because at the time I didn't cry. I remember having full peace, and I remember going to these people and saying, I will be dying, and I need a commitment from you. Could you give me this commitment? And I will allocate you this much money. It won't cost you anything out of the pocket. And people were like horrified, but they were saying yes. I had long conversations with these people, and they were saying, yes, I will commit that to you. I will do that. So February 14th comes, and I'm working through my list, and I'm feeling really proud how I'm getting it put together and how I'm going to leave this world, and everything's going to be taken care of airtight. I open up my email. Jaren's at school. Rick's in Dallas. I'm alone. And there is a 1-sentence email from someone that we called Stevenson. He was a wonderful missionary in training that lived in our home for 3 years and literally became my son. He calls me Jane Mom. I call him Stevenson. He was now in Bethel, the School of Supernatural Healing in California. And he sent me a 1-line prayer, and it said, Dear Jane Moms, Father God, I'm asking you to give Jane Moms a brand new heart in Jesus' name. And I raised my hands and I looked up at the Lord and I said, Father God, give Jane Moms a brand new heart. And right when I said that, a bolt of lightning hit me in the top of the head, went through my body. I was sitting in a heavy metal, old clunky. We actually found it next to a dumpster. It was heavy, heavy from the old 1960s and 70s office buildings, office chair. And as that happened, it flipped the chair over and knocked me flat on my side on the floor. And it was so fast that as soon as I found myself on the floor, I raised up and I knew. Sorry, I had drips coming from my eye. As soon as it flipped me on the floor, I knew that God had given me a new heart. I knew He had given me a new heart. I ripped off the oxygen. I went running through the house, all by my lonesome, screaming, praise you, oh Father God, praise you, praise you, praise you. Now this is the interesting thing. I was praising Him and saying Now the hole can be fixed because my heart's no longer in COPD. I have a new heart. It didn't even faze me till people started pointing it out to me. That if he gave me a new heart, why is a hole there? And I'm like running around going, now the hole can be fixed. The hole can be fixed. Praise you, Lord. You gave me a new heart. I don't have COPD. My heart's perfect. The right side's working. The left side isn't 7 times enlarged anymore. I called the cardiologist. And I am so hyped up. And I demanded to speak to her. And I said, my heart's been fixed. I have a brand new heart. God just gave me a brand new heart. Electricity hit me through the head, knocked me over in a big metal chair. I jumped up. I knew I had a new heart. Now you can set me up for the surgery. I can have the surgery to fix the hole. And she is so angry. She said, you come to my office right now and I will show you how bad your COPD is. Stop this. You are delusional because you're dying. Come to my office right now. I said, okay. So I went to her office. And I walked in. Now this is a cardiologist unit level, whatever it's called, in a hospital in Colorado Springs, Primrose Hospital. There's probably 10 cardiologists. And as you walk down the corridor to go into the little office that she wants me in for my EKG, which I had done for 2 years the first week of every month, there's EKG machines all along the wall. It's 10 cardiologists there. So I go in, she brings the EKG machine in. She's doing it herself this time. She's going to show me how delusional I am. How I imagined that whole thing. So she hooks me all up, and she's doing the EKG, and all of a sudden she slams the cursor down, not in the hole it goes in, slams it on the table, and walks out, slams the door. So I remember, and all of this is just me because I know this is God, and he put me in this awesome story for some reason. I don't know, but he did. He's using me mightily, and he's awesome. But I sat up, and I'm trying to take the EKG things off, and I'm giggling. And I remember my legs are kicking like this because I know she saw a perfect heart. I know she did. So her nurse comes in, and the nurse says, I guess our EKG machine is broken. And so I don't want to say her name, but the doctor has asked that you be here tomorrow at 7 a.m. She's going to actually put you through a surgery where you can see your damaged heart better. She's going to have you swallow a camera and be put under, and then she can show you the heart. And I thought, I'm not sure I want to do that because I know I have a healed heart. And you have all these other EKG machines. And she said, no, the doctor really thinks that this would be the best. So I said, okay. So I called my husband in Dallas, and I said, she doesn't believe me. I mean, I know what happened, Rick. I felt that bolt of lightning. I felt the slam on the floor. I felt the joy. I praised the Lord. And she says her EKG machine's broken and won't even speak to me. He said, look, let's do it. I'll fly home tonight. I'll be there. I said, okay. So he came home. I didn't eat after midnight. We went in at 7 a.m. They start me on the whatever it is to put me under. Rick asked if he could come in and see the heart, and she goes, oh yes, come in with me. So he's sitting behind the doctor. She's standing, and she's doing it. She's putting the camera down my throat, and she's talking to him, and she's saying, so this will show the back of the heart first, and we'll see all the damage. You'll see the left side really enlarged, And all of a sudden, she stopped talking to Rick. She puts the cursor down and walks out. Didn't say a word to him. So the next thing I know, I'm waking up in a really cold room with all these warm blankets over me and bright lights, and Rick is sitting next to my bed. And I said, well, did she see my healed heart? Did she see it? And he said, I don't know what she said. She just walked out, didn't say a word to me, just put the cursor down and walked out. She hasn't ever been in here. And I said, well, we need to talk to her. So all of a sudden her nurse again comes in, and their nurse said, the doctor is sending you to the hospital at the Denver University Hospital to Dr., I don't want to say his name, so that you can set up the surgery. The doctor refused to come see us or talk to us. And I remember jumping out of the bed, so excited, but kind of loopy still, saying, I have a healed heart, and I can get the hole fixed. Again, people are looking at me. God gave you a healed heart, but you have a hole in it. What's the deal? It's like, I don't even care. Who knows? Man has no knowledge. His ways are higher than our ways. We do not know, you know? So I go to Denver, and I am so very excited. But we have to remember I was dying, and I'm gaining 35 pounds a month. And at this point, I have gone from 110, which I basically was my entire life, size 2 and size 4 pants, to 200 pounds pulling a huge canister of oxygen. So I show up at this doctor in Denver University Medical Center, and I'm very excited because I'm going to get this outpatient surgery that is a snap. Fix that hole. I have a healthy, brand new heart. I'm going to lose all this weight, lose this oxygen tank that I'm leashed to, start riding my bike, climbing Pikes Peak, swimming laps. I would tread water for 90 minutes a day. I just was so excited to get my life back. So he walks in, and I'm bubbling. He sees a bloated 200-pound woman with an oxygen cannula and tank. And he shakes my hand, and he sits down, and he says, what do you think doing this surgery will do for your life? And I said, oh, it'll make it so I can live again, so I can be myself, so I can... He interrupts me, and he starts telling me the most hateful, bitter, angry words I have ever received. You are nothing but fat because you will to be that way. You choose to live a life where you sit and eat and do nothing else. You deserve to die. I will not waste my time on you, and I will not take your money because you deserve what you've got. You deserve the way you are. And there's no value or worth to you, and I am not going to spend one more minute of my time on you. I am at this point sobbing so hard that my pants are getting soaked and snot is everywhere, and I'm going, no, you're wrong, I've exercised all my life. I mean, I haven't even had a carbonated drink. I have always been known as just plain Jane that never does any fun. I've never tried pot. I've never done drugs. I've never drank coffee. I've never tasted coffee. I drink water and I exercise. And he's telling me how horrible I am to be the way I am now and how my life adds nothing to society. He had no idea that I owned the most sought-after private school in the Broadmoor area in Colorado Springs. I mean, I couldn't even get a word in, and his nurse brings me over a Kleenex box and pulls a bunch out and puts them on, and she backs up. I noticed she backed up into the corner of the room, past the exam table to the back corner, and he just gets up, closes the file, walks out. And I am a mess. And she comes over and she sits down and she's helping me wipe up. And then she says, I'm going to walk you to your car. I said, okay. And I'm just a mess. She walks me to my car and she hugs me. She doesn't really say much. The whole time I'm still sobbing. And she asked me if I'd be okay driving home, because I'm in Denver and I live in Colorado Springs. I said, yes, I'll be okay. So the next morning, I write this doctor an email, and I beg him to do this surgery. And I remember I had to push my computer because I'm sobbing so bad while I'm writing this email that I can't get my tears in the keys. And I'm writing and I'm begging him and I'm telling him who I am. I said, I do have value and worth to my life. I have a daughter I have to raise to 18, and I have a business, and I ride my bike. I've never done drugs. I've never smoked. I've never sat around. I started gaining this weight because my heart wasn't working, and I'm writing him all these things, but he's got my file. So then I started having friends write him. I had 5 friends that were my exercise buddies, and they had been for 26 years. They had climbed Pikes Peak with me. They had walked 4-mile hikes every morning with me. They had walked the neighborhood and done prayer walks, which was 5 miles every evening with me. They started emailing him. And some of their letters were really long. They told in detail how much value I added to the community, how purposeful my life was, how I exercised, how they would have glasses of wine and I would drink water, how, they just wrote. And every morning I'd receive an email back from him saying, it's a waste of my time and a waste of your money. And so this went on for probably 2 weeks. And at that time, I get a call, and she says, Jane, this is Dr. I don't want to use names. This is his nurse who was in the exam room with you that day. I realized before I say anything to you that I could lose my job for this. But I literally haven't been able to sleep for 2 weeks. So I don't care at this point. But I looked your phone number up in your file. And I want you to know I have been his nurse for 16 years. He services people that are 500 and 600 pounds that haven't been out of a wheelchair for years. He services people that are a pack-a-day smokers. I have never witnessed what he did to you. I have invested 16 years in working for one of the most compassionate doctors I've ever met. And it was like a switch went on and there was an evil that came into that room that is just, I can't explain it. But I want you to know that you have value and you have worth, and you need to fight for this. Not here, because I can't even tell you what happened in that exam room that day. It was not the doctor I worked for. So at that moment, I told her I wasn't going to tell a soul that she called me. Her job's fine. But that she just completely changed my life, because I could now know this was under God's control totally again, just with the triplicate calls. Now I've had a harden of a heart situation like Pharaoh, where it's unexplainable. There was nothing that could unharden this heart, this man's heart. And so I needed to do whatever the Lord was taking me to next. So I called my husband, told him about her phone call. He said, come down here. We're going to start new. We're going to start new with a cardiologist in Dallas at Baylor, which is a big heart hospital. So I went down. Now we're into April, or we're into March, going into April. And so we went to the cardiologist and just acted like we had a clean slate. I said, I'm just having problems with oxygen. I don't know what it is. I get out of breath. It's like I have a hole in my heart or something. I just don't have any clue what's going on. And he looked at me and said, oh, well, maybe you do have a hole in your heart. There is such a thing, it's a genital disease, and, we could do you a real fast test and figure that out. I said, oh, good, let's do that. So we went in, we did a bubble study. He said, oh, yes, yeah, you have a hole in your heart. Okay, well, let me tell you what we're going to do. I do at least 200 of these a year. They are so easy. It's outpatient surgery. I go up through your groin with a cork-like substance, put it right in the hole, your skin grows around it, and you are good as new within a few weeks. I mean, it is so easy, and I just need to get my nurse to get the insurance approval, and we'll get you in this week probably. So we're leaving, we're so excited. We're thinking, God, I don't know why, but you wanted me in Dallas with this doctor. So we get a call from him like 2 days later, and he says, your insurance turned it down. And he said, I'm going to pursue this further. This is ridiculous. They turned it down saying it was experimental and that they don't pay for procedures like that. But let me tell you, you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I probably do 100 of those a month. They've never turned it down. I have no clue why this has been turned down. So each week he would call us and say, I'm going all the way to the president. This is ridiculous. You should see the emails I have back and forth. They keep denying you. They keep saying it's experimental. They keep saying they will not pay for this. And he says it's a $16,000 surgery. It's not a big deal. So I'm actually talking with Rick saying, we just need to pay it. But we need to figure out why God's making us pay it, why this is happening. So after a month, the cardiologist calls us, and he has us come in. He shows us the stack of emails, back and forth, all the way to the president. He said, well, I have some very odd news for you, and I cannot explain this in any medical rhyme at all. Rhyme or reason. Any medical rhyme or reason at all. But Blue Cross Blue Shield denies the outpatient, easy fix, no complication surgery that costs $16,000. But they do approve open heart surgery with 3 months recovery, the chance of dying on the table for $250,000. He said, I would never do that if I were in your shoes. I remember at that moment, Rick and I looked at each other and we belly laughed. And we looked back at him and say, we're doing it. This is God's story, and you have no idea. We didn't tell him that, but he had no idea what I've gone through in Colorado Springs and then in Denver. And I said, we're doing it. He said, you're doing it? You want to do open heart surgery? You know the recovery time is between 3 and 6 months. You can't lift over 10 pounds. You want to do this? We said, yeah, you just don't know. We want to do this. So he said, well, my very best friend actually is a heart surgeon. I will call him and see when he can see you. And he said, probably we can get you in within a couple weeks. So he called him and came back in the room and said, he wants to see you right now. And here's his address. So we drove over to his office and we sat down, and I am just giddy at this time because this story is too crazy. And I'm witnessing doors slamming, hearts hardening, God shouting, doors opening. It's a roadmap I could have never imagined. And I just knew God was in control. So we sit down and he says, well, actually, we sat down and he scoots his chair so our knees are touching, and he's looking me right in the face. He says, do you realize you have a hole in your heart that will probably take 3 stitches at the max and 5 minutes to do? But if I have to do it for you through open heart surgery, it's going to take an hour to get you on a heart and lung machine. It's going to take you an hour to get you off the lung and heart machine. And you are going to have the chance of dying on the table, the chance of dying from a embolism in your lungs, blood clots during recovery. This is not something to take lightly. No one opts to have open heart surgery. And I look at Rick and I look at him, and we do. We want to do this. We want to do this right away. And he's like right in my face. He's had his chair worked. He's saying, you know, this is really, really serious. You need to think about this. No, I don't need to think about it. My husband doesn't need to think about it. We want that surgery as soon as possible. He says, well, I have a big heart surgery tomorrow, but if you wanted to come at 6 a.m., it'll literally take me 2 hours because the actual surgery is going to be 3 stitches. It's going to be putting you under in the heart and lung machine and taking you off in recovery. So I could do that 2 hours before I start my day of surgery. So we said, great. So the day of the surgery came. I said my goodbyes, and Jaren had her movie, Rick had his book. Well, the 2-hour surgery went to a 5-hour surgery before they came out to explain anything, which then went to an 8-hour surgery before they could finish up. And what he found when he got inside was that I didn't have a wall. There was nothing dividing my left and right chambers, that there was no rhyme or reason for why I was alive at 56, that there was no way I could have given birth to the child out there and other children he didn't even know about, that this surgery that was supposed to be very quick ended up being 8 hours because he had to take a skin graft off my heart, make a 3-fold wall, which in his words resembled the cuff of a pair of blue jeans, and sew it from the top to the bottom of my heart. So what should have been a 2-hour surgery ended up being an 8-hour surgery. And what should have been the fix with the groin surgery that plugged the hole would have actually killed me immediately on the table without any recourse. Because without a wall, they would have put that cork up through my groin and it would have gone straight into my aorta, which would have caused me to die immediately. Now, the really, really awesome moment is I wake up from surgery and I have a heart surgeon that just spent 8 hours being completely blown away in a very unexplainable way, where medically he cannot understand how this is possible. He tells us that it is as if I had a brand new heart. He said, your heart is like the heart of a teenage boy, strong, tight, muscular. He kept looking at me thinking, this is a 56-year-old woman. He said he was so perplexed, he cannot medically explain it. It makes no sense at all. But I had a teenage heart. That he even took some liberties to examine the entire heart and to look down the artery to find no plaque, clean whistle. It made no sense. But it confirmed to my husband and I immediately that God did give me a brand new heart and an amazing story. And there were people that God was working on through the whole process that we will never know until the day we're in heaven as to why and what they were going through. but God has a reason. I think back in amazement at how I literally saw how a heart was hardened, how God speaks in triplet, how he closes doors, how he opens doors, how he miraculously heals, how he answers prayers. I just know that I can fully trust that this is his story written in the Ancient of Days, and that I am just so grateful to be in a story that he has written for his glory and for his purposes. So in the end, the way I look back at this entire journey is that years ago I was given the scripture, Isaiah 55, as my scripture, and his ways are higher than our ways. And so I just trust God. You just trust God. You can't question it, or you can't try to change it. You just go on the path he's written for you. And it's amazing. And in the end, he will have the glory, and people's hearts will be changed. And I'm so grateful to be alive.